Dan Stever, and I'm the publisher of the Gazette. One of the roles and responsibilities traditionally of local newspapers is to identify and shine a light on issues that are important to the local community. Over the last several years, the Gazette has offered a new way to shine that light and to bring the community together talking about it through nights like tonight. We call them community conversations, and over the past few years we've done dozens of community conversations, always around a topic that is very important and talked about in the community. And I can tell you that this topic tonight has been for us the most talked about topic. Over the last 6 months, the letters to the editor, letters whether they be for bike lanes in the way the city has been going or against bike lanes in the way the city has been going, either way, more letters have been written to the editor by multiples of this issue than any other issue. We cannot make tonight happen. Before we get started, I just want to do a few housekeeping things. We couldn't make nights like tonight happen without the support of sponsors. So I want to introduce 3 of our sponsors tonight really quickly, and then we'll get started. First of all, from Pro Cycling Warehouse, the Director of Marketing, James Stocco. James?
This is absolutely amazing, so I'm going to be super kooky and put it all on Instagram. This is an amazing turnout. So, as he said, I work for Pro Cycling. I'm the Director of Marketing, whatever that is, for a bike shop. Obviously, we've been in the community for 16 years. We've been in a number of different locations. Right now we have 2 locations, one of them down on west side of town, one of them out on the east side of town. We've, like I said, been in the community for 16 years. We sponsor Manitou Monsters, Shine Canyon, Shine mountain bike team, the high school team, and a number of other guys in town as well, about 50 or 60. So obviously we're big advocates for bike lanes, and this turnout is amazing. So we've got to thank the Gazette for putting this on. I'm really interested to hear what everybody's got to say tonight. And yeah, again, thank you very much and appreciate your time.
Our next sponsor is McDivitt Law Firm, tonight represented by attorney and CEO Mike McDivitt.
My job tonight is not to be an advocate for anybody except the Gazette and the media in this country, without which we wouldn't have a free democracy. And I want to congratulate the Gazette for sponsoring this. This is what we have got to do. We have to honor the fact that America is great because we have a media that's strong, and the fourth estate is important. So thank you to the Gazette. I'm only just going to say a few more things. McDivitt Law Firm is very proud to be able to be a sponsor for this event. Of course, in our line of work, we represent people who get injured, and we've had a number of people who have been injured, not only in automobiles themselves, of course, but bicyclists. So there's a conflict out there. It ought to be able to be resolved in a very civil and dignified way. And I'm honored to be a part of Colorado Springs, a community that's known throughout this country as being a place where people can get together and talk over matters and come to a conclusion about a satisfactory resolution. So thank you again to the Gazette, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to help sponsor this event.
And our third and final sponsor is the AARP of Colorado, State Director Bob Murphy.
Thank you, Dan. On behalf of nearly 700,000 AARP members in Colorado, including more than 50,000 here in Colorado Springs, it's our pleasure to be here as one of the sponsors of this evening's dialogue. You know, one of the efforts we have throughout the country is our livable or age-friendly community movement. We have more than 330 communities that have joined that. Colorado Springs, under the leadership of Mayor Suthers and the City Council, and under the direction of Claire Anderson and Innovations in Aging, is one of our great examples of livable communities in the United States. A foundational principle of a livable community is the ability to have a civil community dialogue about an issue that sometimes about which people can reasonably disagree. That's why it's our pleasure to sponsor this event. That's why we've done several in the past on issues like homelessness and affordable housing. Thank you most of all to all of you for coming out tonight. Let's have a great conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks for once again sponsoring a community conversation here in Colorado Springs. I'm going to get this thing started now, but there are four things to the formula to make these things successful. First one is you have to have a topic that everybody's interested in. Check, I think we've got that. The second thing is you have to have a panel of experts from a broad variety and an array of areas, a balanced panel and an expert panel. Check, we have that again here tonight. Third thing you have to have is an engaged audience, and an audience that can respect the rights of others to hear and be heard. And the fourth thing is someone who can make all those other three happen. And we're lucky tonight to have a former award-winning TV journalist, current KKTV news anchor, Don Ward.
Well, 3 out of 4 is not bad. I want to start tonight by introducing this panel of experts to you, beginning on the far left. Jill Gaebler, President Pro Tem of the Colorado Springs City Council, serves on the boards of the Pikes Peak Library District Foundation, the Downtown Development Authority, and the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. She and her husband of 27 years are raising their 2 teenagers in the Patty Jewett neighborhood. Thank you for being here. Next is Rick Villa, a representative of SaferCC.com, has lived in the Springs for more than 55 years. Rick is a hiker and a biker. He's bagged 18 14ers, and he's become an award-winning scenic photographer since retiring from his union job at King Soopers. Rick, thank you. Next, Tim Roberts, a principal transportation planner for the city of Colorado Springs, where he manages a transportation planning group for traffic engineering. He currently sits in the Pikes Peak Area Council of Government Transportation Advisory Committee and serves as the staff liaison for the Citizens Transportation Advisory Board. Edward Snyer is a managing director at Charter Equity. He's representing Restore Our Roads, a group of citizens advocating for accurate public input and data-driven approach to decisions about the city's infrastructure. Finally, Dr. Cory Sutela has served on several volunteer boards, including the Trails and Open Space Coalition, Medicine Wheel Trail Advocates, and Bike Colorado Springs. He has a PhD in engineering from Cambridge University in England and moved to the Pikes Peak region in 2004 to work in product development and manufacturing. His wife is a Springs native who grew up in the old North End. I just want to remind, a couple of people have mentioned civility tonight. Let's try to keep it that way. Let's try to be passionate but polite if we can. And if anything gets out of hand, we have officers here, so let's just try to stay calm and polite to one another and let's hash this out. We're going to start with the panelists each going about 2 minutes just to explain to us who they are, why they're here, what their stake is in this, and we'll start with Jill Gaebler.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? We have very fancy equipment up here. So again, my name is Jill Gaebler, and I am just about to finish up my 6th year on the City Council, where I have really been working to create and promote a connected community and really vibrant neighborhoods and a strong downtown. I got my start doing that as the chair of the Infill and Redevelopment Committee for the city, where we really try to figure out how we can best come back in to our city and develop it and redevelop it instead of continuing to sprawl out. It was through that work that I started working on the Plan COS, which is a comprehensive plan for the physical development of our city, where we really started delving into what our city should look like, how we can best maintain it, and how we can serve all of our citizens. And it was really out of that process that I began really realizing how important it is to build a city that has a transportation network for people. Not just cars, not just bikes, not just pedestrians, but for people, for everybody using every mode of transportation. By doing that, we create a safer community for everybody, we create a more equitable community for everybody, and we really maintain our roads better, and it's cheaper for the city. I not only serve on the boards that that they mentioned, but I also serve on the Pike Ride Committee, our Bike Share Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, where I've really been working to figure out how we can provide transportation dollars for regional projects. And there's more I was going to say. Oh, I also am the chair of the statewide Front Range Passenger Rail Commission. I have a lot of expertise now after all these 6 years in all of the modes of transportation that we use. And I really believe it's important that we continue to build and maintain our roads for all modes of transportation.
I love Colorado Springs. It's a great place to grow up in. Our beautiful city is ranked number 5 in the nation to bike in by active.com and number 18 in the nation by bicycling.com. I've ridden my bike from the Air Force Academy to Franktown, from the south end of the Springs to Canyon City. I'm very thankful that we've got many great bike trails to ride on. Partially because I've been hit by a car while I was on my bike. I've also had a pickup that had plenty of, that decided to swerve at me when I had my 2-year-old son on the back of my bike. So I really appreciate having a way not to have to interface with motor vehicles. When the group that claims to represent ONIN joined forces with Colorado College back in 2008, about 11 years ago, pushing to install 4 roundabouts on Cascade Avenue, I found out that roundabouts are more dangerous for bicyclists and pedestrians. Dr. Steve Marsh invited me to become part of a group that included engineers and retired military officers. Together, we created safercc.com in order to give our side of the controversy and to make crossing Cascade Avenue safer. We believe that converting lanes on Cascade Avenue, which cars use thousands of times daily, to a bike lane that is only used dozens of times by bicyclists, was akin to mice with megaphones demanding and taking roads used by mules and horses. Still, that's okay. Thank you. Yeah. Still, our group tried reaching across the aisle to the other side, trying to find a way to compromise about converting Cascade Avenue into a bike lane, but we were rebuffed by Kathleen Krager and by the ONIN board. Our group is saddened by the all-or-nothing attitude the other side exhibited again when they demanded that a lane of traffic be converted into a bike path on Research Parkway, even though there's a large multi-purpose trail next to it with space separating bikes from motor vehicles.
That's time, Ray. Thank you.
Really?
We're asking for 2 minutes. Tim Lawrence.
Thank you. Can you hear me? No. How about now? Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is Tim Roberts, Principal Transportation Planner for the City of Colorado Springs. We talk about advocates. I am an advocate for roadways. When we're talking about advocacy, though, for roadways, I'm talking vehicles, cars, and trucks, pedestrians, and bicyclists. My personal view on transportation is it's a quality of life service. It's an everyday need for everybody out here. You need access to work, access to schools, to everyday services, to medical and everything else. As a civil servant to the community, it's my role to make sure that we address all modes. You know, we have, everybody's a taxpayer, and it's our job to make sure that we are looking at and making good quality decisions when we're considering transportation facilities. This can be a challenging task. We have to navigate political waters. We have to make transportation decisions with opposing views. Here we are tonight. You can see just how controversial and how intimate transportation is to everybody and their livelihood, really. So another part of my job is to make sure that I make good technical, sound recommendations to my bosses and to our elected officials. We need to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we need to make sure that we are making solid, defensible decisions to make sure that everybody is safe that use our roadways. I want people to take away tonight that it's not always one easy solution for transportation issues. We can look at intersections, and based on the nature of crashes or the delay or whatever the issue is, we can look at stop signs, traffic lights, roundabouts, or many other tools in our toolbox. There's not one specific solution.
That's fine, thank you.
My name is Snyer. First of all, I want to thank the Gazette. Microphone. Hello, Timbo. Check Tim. Now, yes, no, 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yes, I got it. You got it. I'm not doing it. I want to thank the Gazette for putting this on. This is enormously helpful, I think, in getting a more in-depth discussion about the issues that we're facing here. My background, I was at DIA, electrical engineering, electromagnetics, and a master's in microwave. I did an MBA in finance. Those have nothing to do with traffic engineering whatsoever, but they have a lot to do with math. And whether you're analyzing data sets from finance or electromagnetics or Mr. Physics here, mechanical engineering, it's still analyzing data. And the issue I think we're facing here is that the bike lane controversy is being cast as cars versus bikes. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what we would say. The people in our group, Restored Our Roads, many of them don't bike at all but want more infrastructure. Many of them do use the bike infrastructure and don't like the way it's been implemented. Restored Our Roads is not opposed to bikes. We're not opposed to bike infrastructure. We are opposed and don't necessarily believe that the type of infrastructure the city's implementing is in the best interest of either cyclists or cars. Most importantly, we're opposed to the way the city is implementing this. The data suggests that unprotected roads like you have on Cascades are actually significantly more dangerous, and they don't attract the type of cyclists, the casual cyclists, the city says they want. The push for traffic, the road narrowing on Wasatch, on Cascade does actually increase traffic on Nevada. That's already been documented by the city's own thing. So a road that was very dangerous has gotten even more so. The changes to Cascades aren't data-driven in our opinion. So what is driving them? It's certainly not public opinion. The city has made these changes in spite of, not because of, public opinion. That's clear from the response. When they face substantial opposition to this and all the other ones, Research Parkway, they've actually told us that this is what people want to go along, and that's why we're here. So a lot of the people in our group feel dismissed, feel railroaded, and it doesn't bode well for future infrastructure if the public doesn't agree with the way the city's implemented. It certainly doesn't bode well for like the stadium where they have to get people to buy in. So we don't see this as cars versus bike. We see this as governed versus the government. And we just want the city to be more data-driven like we are, and to be more respectful, be collaborative, and be more forthcoming. That's how they deal with us. Thank you.
Cory Sutela.
Good evening. Hello, how's the mic? Hello. Good. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello, how are we doing? All right? No. Hello? Can you hear me now? How's that? One more. One more. Hello, hello. How's that? All right? Good to go?
You want to sit in my lap?
Hi, can you hear me now? Yeah. Getting ready with the outside voice. All right, here we go. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming, especially thanks to those who rode their bikes on a winter evening. And thank you to the Gazette and KKTV for hosting a great forum. My name is Cory. I'm the Advocacy Chair for Bike in Colorado Springs. BCS is a program of the Trail and Open Space Coalition. It's a 501c3 organization with a 30-year history in our community. As a registered nonprofit, we exist for the public good. We're a volunteer-driven organization with a mission of making bicycling in the Pikes Peak region better for people of all ages and abilities. People that includes people who don't ride bikes. We have a website and a fully public Facebook group where you can come to learn about biking opportunities, discuss roadway changes. Both of these are open to everyone who wants to have a respectful dialogue, so please come join us for the discussion. With that in mind, we like the tagline of the forum as a community conversation and not a battle with winners and losers. In the last several weeks, I've had discussions with neighbors who've had a wide range of viewpoints. As taxpayers, we agree that we want a comprehensive transportation plan that will prepare us for the population growth and changes that are coming in the next 5, 20, and 50 years. We want a plan that includes robust and transparent public input so that we know that all citizens' voices are heard and considered fairly and equitably. We want a modern, data-driven plan that ensures safe transportation choices for my generation and the next. We want a plan that considers people who bike, who walk, who use transit, and who drive, but does not dictate how a person should travel. And we want adequate maintenance of our trail system, which makes up the backbone of our bike transportation network. This is a whole other conversation, but we call on all stakeholder agencies and organizations to cooperate to ensure our trails are safe, sanitary, and usable. We also agree as people who use the roadways that we want clear communication before, during, and after roadway work, roadway designs that are easy to understand, safe, and efficient in helping people where they want to go, proper implementation of well-designed infrastructure that supports safe and predictable behavior by all users. So we don't agree on every detail of every roadway design, but BCS feels that the recent changes to Cascade Avenue do improve safety and expand the safe bicycle network. And now we're in a great place to have a discussion with some differing viewpoints. Thank you.
I have a lot of questions up here. Some were submitted by Gazette readers, some were submitted by KKTV viewers by email, and some were written by you tonight. We're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to start with one that was an email question, because it's a basic one. How many miles of car lanes do we have in Colorado Springs? How many miles of full-lane bicycle lanes do we have in comparison? And I think the city could answer this with 10 perhaps.
Yes. I'll speak to this one over here. So if we look at center lane mileage, which is you don't look at the number of travel lanes on a roadway, but you actually measure from the center line. We have 1,755 center lane miles of roadways in total. That includes everything from arterial streets to residential streets, and 130 center lane miles of bike lanes. So if you take the percentage, about 7.4% of our roadways, of our city roadways, include actual striped bike lanes on them.
Does anyone want to respond to that? Just as it's a basic. Yes, go ahead, sir.
According to what I read on their website, the city's website, we have 118 miles of bike trails, 100 miles of on-street bike routes, and 63 miles of mountain bike trails.
Okay, with those numbers in mind, did you have a rebuttal? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so just to clarify, a bike route is not a striped bike lane. It is a roadway that is lower volume, lower speed, and we feel is good to be used for bicyclists. But it doesn't really warrant the dedicated space on the roadway.
Understood. I think are we all understanding that? Okay. There's one email question here that says total number of commuters, 0.3% is bicycle. And they're wondering, based on that, and one of you can answer whether that's true or not, why would it be reasonable to expect bicycle commuters to increase to a meaningful percentage to say 10% anytime in the future, the foreseeable future? Is that a reasonable expectation? Who wants to take that? Is that a number anyone's been familiar with?
Yeah, I can
Jill.
start. I am not exactly sure what that number is. It probably is pretty low, like 0.3% right now. And from a policy perspective, which is where I sit, it is the policy of Plan COS, a comprehensive plan for our city, and which was passed and adopted unanimously by the City of Colorado Springs. Also, the Bike Master Plan, which had significant public process with the community and was also adopted and passed unanimously by the Colorado Springs City Council. All of these documents promote and recommend increased bike infrastructure for our community. And so whether or not we think 10% is the right number, we believe through these documents and through the public process that we got from the community that the community wants a connected space for where they can move throughout our city via bike. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be every road. It doesn't going to mean that it's going to be even 20% of our roads, but it needs to be a safe way for people to commute through our city by bike. And that is what our community members want. So it is... plan was just adopted. It's probably a 10 to 15-year plan. And at that point, we will reassess what our city looks like and make adjustments. As Cory mentioned, we are about to undertake a transportation plan, and that was a recommendation of Plan COS. That's the next document. And so that will be the next opportunity for the community members of Colorado Springs to really provide input of what they want our community to look like in the transportation network. So that is a great opportunity, again, to really provide us feedback. But right now, the community members have spoken via our numerous public processes that they want more bike connectivity in our community.
Jill, thank you. Cory, I think you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, so a couple of things. We're never against 10% biking in Colorado Springs. Seattle was voted the number one bike city in the country. And it's put an enormous amount of investment into bike infrastructure, 3.5% of its commuters. And it's much more open, it's much more demographically set up for biking. Vastly larger number of people using public transportation, only 1% use public transportation in Colorado Springs. Doesn't get 1/10 the snow of Colorado Springs, and they have seen a steady decline in bike ridership. They're at a 10-year low right now. And the number 2 city in the U.S. is San Francisco. I used to live there 15 years. They're at a 9-year low. So we've got 7% of the roads, which is really surprising. Not 7%, or 7% of the bike trails too. So given the demographics of over 90% of the people in Colorado Springs commute by car, to even have a fighting chance to get to Seattle's number, you have to have a much higher people in a denser urban environment in order to get there. So I'm not arguing we shouldn't do it. I like the idea quite a bit. In fact, we're aligned on a lot of issues in terms of increasing bike infrastructure. But to suggest that by just throwing lanes out there and adding bike infrastructure, you're going to get people to bike is not correct. And the city's own plans show this. So I don't want to tell you, we'll get into plans in a minute, but there are copious documents out there. If you had time to read them and go through all the data and all the polling information, that basically what we're doing right now is going to yield nothing towards the causes that we're actually trying to achieve. And I'd be happy to go into that, but I don't want to.
We'll get there, I think.
I just want to
Handheld on.
Try one more time. Yeah, I think the 0.3% number is low. It's a really hard thing to measure, and it's something that we'd like to improve on measurements. But we, in our organization, we hear time and time again from people who say they are interested in using bicycles for transportation, but are scared to do so. And I want to use the analogy of building a bridge. You don't decide whether you'll build a bridge or not based on the number of people that are swimming across the bridge. You look at the transportation needs comprehensively, and you make a plan, and then you put in what works for the people that want to use it. Another analogy would be a baseball diamond. If you feel you don't have enough money to build a full baseball diamond, so we're going to start by building just home plate and first base, and then, gosh, guess what? No one's playing baseball. Why is that? We need to build this connected network so that people who want to ride can do so.
At the same time, with those points of view being so prevalent, and this being such a controversial issue in itself, one email question says, is it reasonable or unreasonable to ask the city to poll the citizens concerning the so-called road dieting in order to make room for the bike lanes? Why or why not? Who wants to take that? Jill, go ahead.
So this is, excuse me, I'm coughing tonight. This is another policy-related issue that the council and the mayor have discussed to a great extent. Our transportation issues are administrative issues that are accomplished after having a significant public process, usually through a master plan. And then when there is a specific road that is being considered, there are additional meetings. In the case of Cascade, there were several meetings held in the community that were well attended after the master plan and the bike master plan were completed. So that is how the city receives input for transportation-related infrastructure. To do some sort of poll on a transportation implementation would be significantly, it would be unprecedented. And it would be very, very expensive, and it would be accomplished by the community, of course, but at the end of the day, we have to rely upon our transportation professionals to implement those decisions after the process with the community. We are, as you probably know, right now installing red light cameras. Love them, hate them. The city has decided that we need them because we are seeing so many traffic accidents because of people running red lights. We had 49 people killed on our streets last year, and the city really wants to do what it can to keep our community members safe when they're on the road, whether they're in their car or they're biking or they're walking. I think if we polled the community right now on whether they wanted those red light cameras, they would say no. But the city will still do it because we know that it's for the right thing for our community, because our number one priority is to keep our citizens safe on our roads.
Is that a reasonable answer to that question? Is that a reasonable answer as to why we can't just vote on this?
No,
Go ahead.
it's not. The term robust public input has been kicked around so often. We're using that word a lot. I don't think it means what you think it means. I mean, I agree, we've got robust public input, and I agree we've narrowed roads, but you've never got them both at the same time. In 2016, when you decided, you laid out your detailed plans for narrowing roads through Onan. And in big public forums, you had charts and everybody was present there, and you got public feedback, and it was overwhelmingly against it, so much so the city finally voted against it. All right, well that didn't work. So then in September of that year, we're going to sidestep that whole thing and just restripe Richard Park overnight and just tell everybody, hey, that's the way it goes, right? And then you got your feedback after the fact, which was overwhelmingly negative, and you reversed it. No. All right, so getting robust public input didn't work, and doing it in the middle of the night didn't work. So it seems that Kathleen Krager this last time decided, I'll try a hybrid approach. We'll put up the farce of public input, but we're going to do what we want to do all along. So she held 3 meetings, 2 in the fall of 17 and 1 in January 18. And in those meetings were a litany of public safety, bus routes, pedestrian safety, everything but road narrowing until the last meeting. And then she brought road narrowing. And to make sure the deck was stacked, you guys invited all the bicyclists. There's emails going out in our core requests where you invited bicyclists to meetings. Rick, did you get invited to that meeting? You did. I didn't get invited to that meeting. So that's fine. We had a couple dozen people vote on the proposal. All of us found out about it afterwards. We started talking to Kathleen Krager. She was like, well, I've got a degree in this, you don't, go away. And now you got your public response, and here we are. We're at the Gazette poll. You got the letters of the Gazette have been adamantly, as pointed out, against this. And the Gazette's own poll where 50% more people were opposed to the process. So I get it. The public process is done, but it's usually done after the fact, and in more cases than not, it requires you to reverse what you did to begin with. So appealing to that is a little disingenuous.
Tim, the city response to that.
So actually, the city held 4 public forums for the Cascade. And
Please let him talk.
at the third meeting, we held a poll, and here I have the data here. So to accommodate pedestrians on Colorado College campus, Cascade Avenue should be redesigned as, the options are, a 2-lane street with crosswalks, keeping the 4-lane street with mid-block signals, or 4 lanes with no crosswalks or additional signals, just kind of keeping it as is. The vast majority for a 2-lane street with crosswalks was 31. The 4-lane street with mid-block signals was 13, and no crosswalks, keeping as it was only 1 vote. So obviously, the city heard and you received feedback there. Now, I know that you may not have been invited. I don't know the details of that. But we did have a very good, robust outreach to all the residents in the neighborhood. And we had really good turnouts at these meetings. So we did hear from the local residents on what they want.
You have almost 10 times more people here than you had at that meeting. And more importantly, okay, but let's say we're wrong. We're completely out of our mind that this is hugely popular with populists. As we've said in city council meetings, and as I've met with the mayor and said, we don't think it is, but let's settle the debate. Let's do a poll. You can't do a poll on every administrative issue. I totally understand that. They have to be free to do what they want. But this isn't just a simple poll. Look at this room. Look at the letters of editors. Look at the outrage from a lot of the public. So this isn't just a simple administrative issue. There's a lot of people involved. So let's do a poll. And you know who opposes the poll? Joe Gaebler in the mayor's office. In a non-public meeting on the 7th of January, Councilman Knight proposed doing a poll. And Gaebler and the mayor's office and 2 other council members said, no, why wouldn't you do a poll if it's popular?
Jill, go ahead and respond.
I'm happy to respond. So first and foremost, this meeting that you're referring to was a public meeting and there was media in the room. Anytime 3 or more council members are together, we have to have a public meeting. So it was a publicly held meeting where we did have a conversation about polling. There were a couple council members who had met with Mr. Snyer, and they were asking about whether or not that would be a good idea. The mayor was adamant, and so was I, and other council members came on in defense also, because again, whether or not a majority, and I have said this, agrees or not, the city of Colorado Springs believes implementing safe bike infrastructure is what is best for this community. It is what is safest for this community. And as the mayor has said many times now, and I will just speak his words, it is important for this city to add 3,000 to 4,000 35-year-olds every year for the next who knows how many years, because we need them to be our workforce, to take our tech jobs, to take those software designer jobs. The mayor will actually go further and say, I don't care if one more 65 or older person moves to this city, but I need those 3,000 to 4,000.
All right, Edward, do you have a response to that?
I'm not quite done. That we need those folks to move to our city, and those folks, those younger folks, want bike amenities. We have tons of statistics about, as recently as like 2010, 87% of 19-year-olds were getting driver's licenses. In 2016, it was down below 70%. Our young people are not driving. They want bike amenities.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's great. Edward, restore our
Okay, so we can agree that.
Go ahead, Edward.
Sorry, we can agree that the popularity argument is now out the door, because we don't care if it's popular, the majority support it, it's going to be for your own good. So that's gone now, right? So we got that one out of there. All right? And it's ridiculous to assume that because you're attracting 19, the average age of Colorado Springs is actually lower than the national average. So we're now going to bring in identity politics to justify what you wanted to do from the beginning. Rick, how long is the fight going on? Since 07?
Since 08.
Since 08, right?
Yeah.
Let's hear from Rick. Go ahead.
Okay, so right now, we're the #1 city in the country for attracting millennials. And I actually have some personal experience with that. My son lived up in Denver, and he and his wife, and then they just moved to Colorado Springs because they could afford to buy a house over here. They quit a better job that he had in Denver so that he could go ahead and afford a house over here in Colorado Springs. We do great at attracting people. I've lived here since 1962 when we were about 100,000 people. And anybody who believes that they're doing Colorado Springs a favor by going and living here, I think we should just go and tell them not to let the door hit them in the butt on the way out. Because we grow just fine.
Cory.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the point about the robust public input. And I want to refer to the recently released planned COS document. It was, I believe, passed unanimously by council, following 270 public meetings and a steering group that was made up of informed stakeholders. It was I want to say it's more than a 2-year process. It was a process with extensive public input, and in every chapter of that document, it talks about the future of our city and how we need to prepare for the transportation needs. So maybe transportation's not in every single chapter, but this is a document that was developed by our community through extensive public process and really strongly directs us towards preparing for the future, where we're going to see more people want to get around by bike and electric bikes and micro-mobility solutions. So this is the future that's coming. Our city has weighed in and has made a comprehensive plan, and our organization would say that it's much more valuable than a poll. So we would also say that we don't agree with holding a poll, especially on administrative issues.
Thank you very much. Evidence tonight. We said we'd keep this civil, so everyone please do so.
Civil, or you're going to have to leave.
All right, let's move on. Evidence tonight by the turnout that there's a lot of interest in this, and this is a question from someone in the building tonight. Skip says, the city has promised to revisit bike lanes if they don't work. Is that detrimental? How is that determined, and who decides? So is that something the city can talk about, either of you? Is review on the table?
Let me jump on that one.
All right, go ahead.
I think as we're starting to explore new transportation options that are coming to our city, we need the ability to try some new things and I'm going to really line up with Ed here and say we need to use really good data. We need to improve our data collection so that we can take measurements and see how these things are being adopted. So our organization would say, yeah, we need to go out and we need to fail hard and fail forward in order that we can create the transportation network of the future.
I would agree with that statement. The city probably does need to have more data. I would reference the Research Parkway bike lanes in that we put them in. I wasn't really involved with that decision, but I don't know what the data was, and I don't think that that was a data-driven decision to take them out. It was about responding to the public outcry. And so the city did that, but if we had had better data, I don't know, maybe it would have changed the implementation or maybe taken them out.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I manage bike planning also. And we are looking at collecting more data to not only make better informed decisions with bike infrastructure. We already have traffic counts that we can make decisions on roadways for vehicles and such. So we're taking steps to start being able to do pre and post bike studies. There is some, some data out there, cell phone data that you can buy, and it's not exact. It's not exact science, but it gives you an idea of where the users are. As far as pulling a project to implement, I hope we don't go there or get there, because what I'd like to do is implement the correct projects and get it right the first time. So that's my goal is, with my group is, let's get it right the first time, go through our processes, go through our analysis. What people probably don't know is we look at roads, not every road that gets constructed or looked at gets a bike lane. We have an extensive process and analysis that we go through in order to look, to make that determination. We start with traffic counts, we look at growth, the potential for growth in corridors, and if they meet certain thresholds, then we begin the public process. So, there seems to be this mindset that the city just goes out and pushes bike lanes without doing any kind of technical analysis, and that's not the case.
Several questions that I have. Ask questions about if this works, can we review it? If it doesn't work, can we review it? And there are several questions here that imply that in the downtown area, Old North End area, they say it's simply not working. So, Rick, as an avid biker, what do you think?
Well, I believe that the place where they've converted Cascade into a bike lane just past Bijou is just a horrible place to try to navigate now. The way that you try to go and get into a lane if you're going north, it's very difficult to do sometimes. And I can't imagine, I wanted to get over there at rush hour and see how far it was backed up, but I haven't gotten that done. But I do believe that that area right there definitely needs improvement.
Anyone on the panel who disagrees with that? Or Jill, go ahead.
Well, I also live in the area, not in the Old North End, but in Patty Jewett. I drive it, I ride it all the time, but more importantly, I receive a lot of email about the implementation of the bike lanes, and the mayor and I discuss this a lot because we believe that he and I probably receive the most email on this issue, and my email is typically about 2 to 1 in favor. I think you can look at the Gazette editorial letters to the editor, and it runs about even, but a lot of the opposition letters are from the same multiple people, and actually the majority of them live out of the Old North End and in other areas of the city. So that tells me they're using our residential road of Cascade as a cut-through or a shortcut, and I don't think that that's what our residential roads are supposed to be. I have heard from most people, especially who live on Cascade. There are a lot of folks who live on Cascade here tonight. If you do, raise your hand. So there's a lot of folks here today, and most of them support the bike lanes. And I got an email tonight from somebody I have never heard from. She lives in the 2000 block. Her name's Mary Smith, who said she's lived on Cascade for 33 years. It's never been safer. Everyone that comes to visit says they don't feel like they are going to be killed getting out of their car. A bonus is we have not had one drag race since the bike lane was installed.
Tim, what about the argument that northbound on Cascade, trying to turn left onto a street like Wasatch, for instance, that it just becomes very backed up? I mean, have you had anecdotal evidence of that? Have you seen studies on that, or how is that situation now?
So yes, we are monitoring the roadways, and especially when we first implemented the project, we saw some extra queuing. We adjusted the traffic signals a little bit to kind of reduce the queues and get a little traffic flow. I'll be honest, there's some additional changes we want to make out there. You go out there and you see some right turns as you go southbound on Cascade onto Bijou for the interstate, and you see people driving on the bike lane. There's some tweaks that we need to still make. I'm waiting for the new transportation manager to come on board to make those tweaks. That as far as traffic operations, when we put in the bike lanes, before we put in the bike lanes, we did a traffic count. We wanted to see if there'd be deviation once we put in the lane reduction, and we saw 0 reduction in traffic volume on Cascade. We did see that the speeds are generally the same. So our average speeds are pretty much the same. We didn't see any diversion from the lane reduction. So we're still monitoring it, but we don't see any major issues with what we've done. Just some minor tweaking still needs to occur.
We heard somebody mention Seattle before, and another question from someone in the room, from Walt, is what are some of the cities, and let's have both people, both sides talk about this, what are some of the cities that some of you have looked at, other cities, where they're well-functioning bike cities, and this has worked well, maybe relative to how things are going so far here? Who wants to start with that?
There's a lot of data available from a number of cities that have done all sorts of different things for bikers. You can down. Well, Boston's a great example of this. They have 0.3 miles of bike lanes, and they spend a fortune in expanding it. They've got just over 3% of the bicyclists or commuters now bike. But the problem they're facing is that the number of casualties is also going up too. So the rate, the number of people getting hurt by bike mile goes down because more people, but more people are winding up in the hospital. If you look at Seattle, San Francisco, Davis, UC Davis, my alma mater, one of the biggest bike cities in the entire country, because it's a campus town with a lot of bicycles on it. They don't venture out. So there's a lot of data available. And I agree with Cory on this thing too. We need to try stuff. You're doing engineering, you do a lot of math, you do a lot of planning, you do your best guess, and you build it, and then you see what happens. Mother Nature gives you the answer, and then you adjust based on that. And I think the frustration here is for people who've seen this is that, and Tim, you mentioned this, you're not going to collect data before, during, and after, but as you've already mentioned, as we've already seen, the city does this without collecting data to begin with a lot of times. So it's not like you're trying to hedge your bet or to look at your own studies and say, hey, what's likely to work based on what we've already gathered. This is the state of bicycling in Colorado Springs. This is a study the city commissioned in 2017, February, as an adjunct to the bicycle plan, right, to say specifically what you want to do. You know what this report says? So it polls the casual bicyclists, the guys they say they're trying to get on the road, not professionals, right, the guys who bike, not for a living, but are not afraid of traffic. You know what this report says? If you read it, it says, don't do what you did on Cascade. It says, if you poll the people that you want to get on there, they say, we will not bike on roads next to cars and unprotected bike lanes. Overwhelmingly. So I know you're appealing to, we do this plan, we have 270 different meetings, all these special groups, etc. But when you actually ask the people you're trying to get there, they say, don't do it, and then you did it anyway. So appealing to the plan is kind of disingenuous because it's a vision statement, and the implementation of that comes down to specifics, how you feel, what data you have. And a lot of times they don't make any sense based on your own data.
That's time. Thank you.
So you look at best practices, and the city staff, we're always looking at what's best practice nationally. We use the NACO guidelines, and we look at Federal Highway Administration for guidance because they conduct studies and they use the Institute of Traffic Engineers, and we look at data nationwide. I can't verify the Seattle numbers if they're going up or down. It could be because more users. You get more users, just like you get more traffic, crashes tend to go up. In Colorado Springs, the report might say bike lanes next to travel lanes and parking are not good. But what we did on Cascade is not just your typical bike lane. The data suggests that buffered bike lanes, which we did do on Cascade, actually make you feel a lot more comfortable when you're riding a bike. I can tell you, anybody that's ridden on a regular bike lane and then rides a buffered bike lane is a major difference. looking at.
All right, that's time,
looking at
thank
the
you.
data.
Thank you very much. Cory, go ahead.
I wanted to follow up, it's kind of related, I guess, to the last two questions talking about Cascade. So from two aspects, we believe that Cascade has been really successful. The first is from, Tim said the average speeds haven't gone down, but the maximum speeds, I believe, have gone down. And so that means that the cars going really, really fast have reduced, even though the traffic volumes that are getting through there are the same. So from a safety perspective, I don't know if we've got enough data yet, but I believe that the safety has been dramatically improved. Now, it's possible with more people biking, yeah, there's more people that could be in harm's way. They're out on the road. It's a dangerous place. Every time you go outside, you're more likely to get hurt than if you stay at home and hide in your house. But with the increases that we've seen, and particularly on Cascade, we've collected, our organization has collected some visual data. We've got a member whose office overlooks the Cascade lanes, and has on more than a few occasions, has counted upwards of 40 cyclists per hour using the lanes. That shows they're getting some good traction. And furthermore, the Pike Ride, the bike share system, since its inception 6 months ago, has every single day has seen an average of over 15 bikes checked out from stations on Cascade every day. So from the perspective of people using it as bike infrastructure, it's been a success. And from the perspective of safety, it's been a success.
I believe it's important to point out that some of that traffic that's Cascade has been diverted to Nevada Avenue. Right? Jill asked you earlier about people that go and put up your hand if you lived on Cascade. If people that live on Nevada want to put up their hands, I think it would be important for them to go and be heard as well. Because according to the data that I read, more traffic has been diverted to Nevada, and they've got buses besides. I believe that this has put an undue strain on one section of that grid.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you're absolutely correct. We did our post-implementation count, and we're still monitoring it. But Cascade volumes did stay the same, and we saw Nevada go up 1,000 vehicles per day. So my task is to figure out why. Because there's many factors that can go into it. It could be construction, diversion, or something else like that. But you're absolutely correct. The volumes did go up on Nevada Avenue.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting topic because we've now dragged safety into it, which is a very good point for this entire debate about that. Which is safer? A car driving 45 on a road with no bikes, or a car driving 35 next to a bunch of bikes, right? We're not talking about putting bike lanes on Nevada because everybody knows it's a thoroughfare with a ton of cars that are going faster than the speed limit. But the same criteria apply to Cascade. Sure, Cascade has fewer cars than Nevada, but it's got a lot more cars than Tejon does. The issues with Cascade have been long-running. They've spawned an entire group, SOS, which are very data-driven guys, who are begging the city to do something about safety. So they're appealing the idea that putting bikes on Cascade is somehow safer while ignoring a much more dangerous street in Nevada. In fact, SOS just did a big presentation to the city. They collected your data. They got the city data from the post-narrowing Cascade because they're very worried that you narrow Cascade, you're going to increase the traffic on Nevada, and as you said, that happened. So they did a bunch of analysis. These guys are great. They're very good. I don't agree with them on what they want to do, but they're really brilliant guys. And so what they did in this presentation, 30 minutes to the city council, 5 guys, great graphics, great whiteboard, the whole 9 yards. And you know what the city said, the council said after they were finished? Let's go to lunch. Literally. It wasn't, hey, thanks for the data, that was interesting, we'll get back to you. They just broke for lunch. So how important is safety really when you've got something like that in Nevada and just ignore it?
A city response to that.
Okay. Well, I want to respond to your earlier question too, but I will respond to this first. So I have talked to the SOS folks many times, and actually as soon as we broke for our break at that council meeting, I went directly to the back of the room and began talking with them because unlike Mr. Snyder, I do agree with them. I agree that we have a ton of streets coming out of downtown, 4 different roads with 8 lanes of traffic, now 7 with Cascade, and we have the capacity to narrow more roads. And that doesn't mean I want a bike lane, but it does mean that we can narrow that road. And I am very much in support of them and their desire for the whole neighborhood to be equitable and have all their roads be the same. And so it's completely unfair for anybody to suggest that the council is not thinking about that, and the city is also thinking about it. I've had conversations with the chief of staff, and we are all trying to figure out a way to really make that neighborhood equitable and protect and keep those neighbors safe, because let's remember, that is 100% a residential neighborhood. That's not your cut through, that is a neighborhood, and we have to ensure all those folks are safe. We have elementary schools there, a Catholic school. We have to keep our community safe. Can I go back and answer the earlier question? You asked a question about other cities.
Sure.
So this is the policy question. I trust my data guys. I'm not the data person. I listen to them. But when it comes to a policy decision, the other city that I've really been looking at lately is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's mayor, who understands that Steel City is really struggling, really came out strong for multimodal transportation. He decided that they were going to lay down bike lanes, they were going to really support transit and pedestrian ways. And Pittsburgh, go check out Pittsburgh, has really revitalized, and it is back. Every year, the Chamber of Commerce takes a group of community leaders to one city in the country. They look around the country and they say, what city is doing amazingly well for crazy reasons that we didn't expect? And this year, we're going to Pittsburgh. So go check out Pittsburgh. Go see what their mayor has done. There's many videos about him out there, and that is what Colorado Springs will be.
Here's another question. I'd like to ask this from both sides of this. With our city population growing, why reduce the number of lanes available for automobile drivers? And why are the downtown lanes so crooked? And why are the bike lanes so much bigger? I didn't write the question. The main question there is, we're growing in population, how can we do away with more automobile lanes?
That's obviously my question.
Go ahead.
Yes, and I had mentioned previously, so we do not put bike lanes and do a lane reduction on every road. We do not. I want to emphasize that tonight. If there's anything I want to come out tonight is every road does not get a lane reduction. We do look at roads, and there's roadways where we say, nope, you cannot do this. And one of the criteria we look at is not just the existing volumes, but what's the potential for future? Is there a lot of vacant land, a lot of opportunity for development to occur? And if there is, that's one roadway where we back off, and we put it in our back pocket, and we say we're going to monitor this roadway. So we do not take lane reductions on every road. Roadways like Cascade are pretty much built out. And when the other criteria we do look at is the traffic volume. And our traffic volume on Cascade was 8,000 vehicles per day. You look at our 4-lane roadways, and their carrying capacity is upwards of actually it's over 20,000 vehicles, almost up to 30, depending on your posted speed limit. 2-lane roadway, we start getting uncomfortable when you get over 15,000. We do have some 2-lane roadways where 20,000 vehicles per day is acceptable because you have a good traffic flow, you have good speed, you don't have a lot of access. To give you an example of 2-lane roadways that carry a lot, you can look at state highways in the mountains that carry 40,000 plus vehicles per day on a 2-lane highway. That traffic is going 55, 65 miles per hour, limited access. So you look at the carrying capacity, you look at the characteristics of each road, and you look at how much projected volume will be. Cascade Avenue is a roadway with 8,000 vehicles per day. We don't see a lot of potential increase. Even if it doubled, it's still within our threshold. So we move forward with that project. As far as the lane width, again, we talk about 5-foot bike lanes and how that's not comfortable in the study. That if we really want to move the needle, we got to make it comfortable for users. The Cascade Avenue allowed us to put in a buffered bike lane to help increase that space between parked vehicles and moving traffic so that you feel a lot more comfortable when you are using the roadway.
Cory, did you have a response to this?
Yeah, I'm still trying to take in some of the stuff Tim was just saying.
Why don't you go ahead, Jim? Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I think from a policy perspective, we have to go back to our comprehensive plan, Plan COS. We are growing as a city, and we know we can't continue to sprawl out. It costs our government too much to build new roads, to maintain those same roads. We have to figure out how to be more fiscally sustainable. But we can't build our way out of congestion. We all know that. It's not going to work to add another lane on I-25. It may work for a few years, but then we're stuck. Then what are we going to do? We need to find something scalable. We need to find something that is reliable. That's going to be passenger rail, probably for our community and for Denver. So when you take that home, the single passenger vehicle, I mean, I have 3 cars. I'm always going to drive my cars, but we have to be thinking bigger on how we're going to move our people through our community by other modes. And that is why we very carefully set aside certain roads, not arterials, residential roads, less congested roads for bike lanes and transit and pedestrian ways, so we can find ways to move our community better and safely.
We're at 7 o'clock. We're going to keep this going for 2 minutes longer if that's okay with everybody.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know if Ms. Gaebler was here when Interstate 25 going through the Springs was 2 lanes, but when they added another lane, that made things
Now they're talking about 4 lanes.
better. So, yeah, so adding another lane, if we had only had 2 lanes right now on Interstate 25, we would probably, most of this group would still be sitting in traffic waiting to get here. Yeah, so a third going and building helps.
Go ahead, Ed.
One more quick point on this. Actually, I don't agree by removing car lanes, you're going to help the density problem at all, because in the cities that provided the most infrastructure for bikes, you never got much above 3.5. And most of those cities don't even have the weather we have. Whereas dense cities like San Francisco, like New York, where people call these out because they're more pedestrian cities, the way to get around a lot of this congestion problem is to go to things like one-way streets or other public transportation. So I agree with Cory. There's a lot of different ways to do this. If you're trying to attract bicyclists, especially casual bicyclists, you're not going to put them on roads. Your own road shows you that. And if you really want to move more people and develop a dense urban environment, which is I think what you're looking for, because it gives a much more community feel to the city, other cities have already done that, and none of them are relying on the bike infrastructure to get that done, because it's 2019, or you can't get rid of the car, so you're going to have to find a way to accommodate all that, and many cities have done that.
Thank you. Let's go off-road with this next question in a way, because this is from Herb, who says, it's my understanding that it is legal for cyclists to ride on sidewalks unless posted in Colorado Springs or Colorado. Has there been any consideration given to improving or widening existing sidewalks that might be deemed multi-use? Who's got a take on that?
Sure.
Go ahead, Tim.
It's legal to ride on the street. It is legal to ride on the sidewalk. But if you know, the type of user we're looking at are not the type that will ride on the sidewalk where you have a lot of driveways. It's actually unsafe when you have that many access points you're crossing on a bike at the speeds that you know, the users are looking at or traveling. It's just not safe. It's actually safer to ride on the roadway. So when we're looking at our user and planning for our user, you know, it's better for them to be on the street. And again, we're talking only streets that where we think they meet our criteria.
Okay. This one.
Can I actually add to that?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we're going to be doing as a community is really we're going to visit on what type of roadways are appropriate for bike lanes, because you know the city has had some experience of putting bike lanes on high-speed, high-volume roadways, and that's not desirable. So we're going to be reaching out to the community to say, okay, what type of facilities should we be looking at for bike lanes? We've already we already have that in the bike master plan, but we're looking at a complete streets policy guideline or manual, and we're going to be seeking public input on that, so that we kind of don't get into this argument, and we can work with our stakeholders in this process to make sure that we're considering everybody's use of that roadway.
Someone wants to know if bike lanes are removed, what about the older population and how they can get around? The implication being that a lot of them maybe ride their bicycles. Is there an answer to that? Any possible solution?
There's a ton of different ways. we're casting this as put the bike lanes on Cascade or don't do them at all, and that's not true. There's been several reports. The American Public Institute of Health did a study in 2016 that says that you will get more people biking on a lightly used street like Tejon with no markings whatsoever than you will get biking on Cascade with markings, because a larger percentage of the casual bike users will feel safer without all that traffic. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be the way we're doing it now, and based on the city's data and a lot of it coming from the other bike-centric cities that have done it, suggests there are better ways to do it. Cory and I have talked about this several times now. Obviously, the trail system is preferred above all. And you're not even in proximity to vehicles. People will bike. People send your kids out biking.
And someone asked that, why not expand the existing trails and maybe the more suburban bike lanes, as opposed to, Cory, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is a question that comes up really often, and I want to be clear. I love our trail system. It's one of the reasons I moved to this community. It's a true gem, and it's a completely renewable natural resource that we really need to leverage. It's really fantastic. The problem is the trail system doesn't go everywhere we need to get to. So what we need to do first is we need to take care of our trail system. And that means we've got to clean it up. And again, let's talk about that some other time. We need work on our trails. But we need to complement that system with a safe network that will allow people who want to ride so they can ride if they choose.
Rick, we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah. Currently on the bike master plan, they have on the map that when they, eventually they're going to finish Pikes Peak Avenue, maybe in 2030 or something like that. But when they do finish Pikes Peak Avenue, what they're intending to do is going to use that as part of their bike master plan. To me, that is just absolutely beyond the pale, because there are other streets, High Street, that we can, Kiowa, that a person can ride on. There's a lot less traffic. And why would you want to go and have people on a busy street with a 4-foot wide lane to encourage them to ride their bicycles on that, rather than just go ahead and say, hey guys, if you ride through this neighborhood, you'll be a lot safer and have a more pleasant ride.
The key point for a lot of the opposition, the way this has been implemented here, is that you have many other alternatives, and yet when we ask you about that, Jim, you there? Yeah. So I think this is a big point of contention with a lot of people who are opposing the way this has been implemented right now, because you have a lot of alternatives available to you that you're not even considering, and then when people like Rick and people in our group and myself have gone to the city and asked them, what's with this? The response is, I have a degree in this, you don't, go away. Or you'll just get used to it. I mean, Research Parkway, when that was done, and a lot of people reported, and Tim, you know this.
The project manager.
The project manager. There was a lot of, hey, it just takes time. Jill Gaebler is on record publishing in the Gazette that a vocal minority is trying to usurp the will of the majority, and they don't like change. That's what she said, right? So what about this report? What about the data? What about everything we just pulled? What about your own city traffic data? We're showing this stuff. SOS does the same thing. You say, okay, can you address the data here? Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Go away. Okay, so that's not how this is going to work. That's why we're here tonight.
Jill, what's your statement?
About bikes is, if you're out riding your bike for pleasure, you don't care how long it takes you to get from point A to point B. But just like if you're in a car, if you're on a bike trying to get to work, you want to go in the shortest and quickest route. So we don't want to ride some circuitous route through the bike trails that are very often, by the way, dirt, and I'm often in a dress riding to work. I want to ride my bike in the shortest way, in the safest way, and stay clean. So it's just like when you're in a car. Just imagine you're in a car but you're on a bike. That's what we want. So I don't want to go down Tejon. I don't drive my car down Tejon because it stops at Uinta. I want to go down a street that's going to take me directly downtown, just like I would if I'm in my car.
I'd like to point out that according to the city's own data, it's 0.7% people actually use their bicycles to commute to work. So we're talking about 99.3% of the people who use their cars, and Ms. Gaebler wants to go and have this deluxe model for 0.7% of people. So,
If we create connected and safe bike lanes, especially for women.
I'd like to wrap things up now by giving each of you 1 minute to sort of wrap up your thoughts tonight. Where it should be going next. We'll do it in reverse order where we started. So we'll begin with you, Cory. Thanks.
Great. Well, I just want to say thanks again for everyone for coming, and I really am looking forward to hearing input from all sides. We really do have to work together on this, and I think we've got the starting of a pathway to do that. One of the things that we didn't really get into tonight was some of the other benefits of a safe bike network, even if you don't ride a bike. We've got an economic impact study of cycling in our region that shows that if we could get just 1% of trips under 5 miles to be taken by bike, it would have a $4 million a year positive impact on our community. So there's positive economic benefits. But even beyond that, I want to talk about the societal benefits. I think my friend Lucy's here somewhere. She's 8 years old. She spoke at council in favor of the bike master plan. She wants to ride her bike to school so that she can see her friends and have a little bit of independence, and it should be safe for her to do that. I've got a 79-year-old friend who rides his bike for recreation. He's scared to use his bike for transportation because the network isn't connected. I've got a good buddy Dave who is not able to drive a car. Anybody know Fixie? He needs a bike in order for him to have employment and to be a contributing member of society. Why would we take that away from him?
Thank you, Cory.
I completely agree we need an in-connecting bike infrastructure. I'm all for it. I've spent my life on bikes, not as much as Cory, but quite a bit of it on bikes. But I'm not going to send my 8-year-old to school down Cascade on the street with a bunch of cars. So all I'm saying is, look at the city's own data, their own studies, all the data available from a host of other cities. It's very clear there are better alternatives. But more importantly, we should get in a conversation about this and a debate about this, but the city has got to start respecting the public's opinion on this, especially when it's data-driven, instead of dismissing everybody as, you're not a traffic engineer, you don't know what you're talking about, go away. That's never going to work. It's not going to work now. That's why we're here, and it's not going to work for like infrastructure. So all I would say is the conversation needs to continue, and when we make experiments like this, we should measure the results, and if they don't work, as the mayor said in the injunction hearing, if he receives a lot of opposition to that, he'll change it. So tell us how much opposition you need, and what is it going to take to change it.
Thank you very much. Tim Roberts, go ahead. 1 minute.
Again, thank you, the Gazette, KKTV, and all the sponsors for holding this forum. This is great. I talked about quality of life and transportation so close to everybody's heart, and this is obvious. I appreciate the discussion tonight and this opportunity. I want to send an offer out to my 2 panel mates here, because I agree this conversation needs to continue. And I think we should continue this in a forum with me, in a meeting, because there's obviously some, I think there's some misperception on our processes, what we actually look at. And I think I also need to hear from that side also. So I extend an offer to you two to go ahead and meet further.
well, I think that when you pile up the problems that we have here in Colorado Springs, we've still got a pretty dang good deal. I think that a large part of the problem has been that we've been really polarized and kind of like we have to fight each other. And I really think that there's room for compromise. There's room for both sides to go and get what they want. And I believe that we should be trying to remember to keep in mind that we have to live next door to these people, even if they like bikes or they don't like bikes or whatever it is, that we should be trying to go in and live together and put these things into perspective.
I guess first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out tonight. I really just am overwhelmed by the number of people here who support and oppose our bike infrastructure. And it means a lot to me as one of your elected officials that we have so many people who love the city of Colorado Springs enough to come out and voice their opinions and support such an event. So first and foremost, thank you. Second, I just want to remind everybody, again, last time I'll say this, from a policy perspective, it is our job to keep our roads safe. Last year we had a record number of people die on our roads. 48 people died on our roads. 13 of those were pedestrians and 4 were on bicycles. That's not acceptable to any of your elected officials or your mayor. And we really need to work to find solutions to keep all of our citizens safe, no matter what mode that they are on the road using. So with that as our number one priority, I think we have a great foundation for us to have these conversations and work together to collaborate and compromise.
Let's hear it for our panel. I love this city. My family moved here when I was 12 in 1978. I know you love this city too because you're all here tonight. So maybe this is the start of something that can get some things resolved, some very complicated things. And I want to thank all of you for being here. And please, when you go home, please drive or ride safely.